In the mid-1990s, a unique sound emerged from the electronic music scene in England. Blending elements of trip-hop, electronica, and alternative rock, Sneaker Pimps burst onto the music landscape with a style that was both innovative and captivating, with their music being described as intense, dark, as well as groovy. But as they quickly rose to fame, they seemed to vanish from the spotlight. Today, because you guys have requested it, let's take a look at the Sneaker Pimps' rise, their sudden disappearance, and their recent resurgence. The group's story begins in Hartlepool, England in 1994. Two young aspiring musicians, including Liam Howe and guitarist Chris Corner, had been experimenting with electronic music since they met during their teenage years 1 decade prior. They had formed the group Frisk, putting out several EPs that showed their growing interest in the emerging trip-hop genre. They also played as a group called Line of Flight that remixed music and concentrated on producing other bands as well as artists. Trip-hop is a combination of hip-hop and electronica with an atmospheric sound and slow tempos. It's a genre that was led by groups like Massive Attack, Tricky, and Portishead. Howe described the group's early works as, and I quote, quiet, atmospheric, beat-led, post-techno doodlings, adding it was, and I quote, non-vocal, just dance music. Wanting to expand their sound, Howe and Corner formed a new group called Sneaker Pimps.
So what exactly is a sneaker pimp?
It came from the Beastie Boys interview that they did on an English music programme, and they had lots of friends on the payroll. And one guy they knew couldn't do anything musical, and so they sent him out into New York to find them old school trainers and called them their Sneaker Pimps.
The duo, however, soon grew tired of working on dance music, with Howe telling the Sun News, "We got tired of the idea of just being a dance band pretty quick, and with people like the Chemical Brothers pushing it further in that realm, we decided to push it more and more into being a band." By 1995, Howe and Corner, who wrote all of the group's music, began working on what would become Sneaker Pimp's debut album. The duo brought in Ian Pickering to help with the lyrics and sing on some of those early demos, but they felt they needed a female vocalist. According to Rolling Stone, Howe's girlfriend had seen a musician named Kelly Dayton perform with what she described as a sonically bad punk group named the Lumieres at the Flapper and Firkin pub in Birmingham, and they invited her to sing on the demos, including the song 6 Underground. She had just the right amount of devilish charm and sex appeal for the duo. Dayton had been playing in bands since she was 16, and she admitted to the Star Tribune that despite the two gentlemen agreeing to work with her, the pair didn't call her for nearly half a year. Once Howe and Corner finally made contact, Dayton made the trip to Hartlepool every weekend for 4 months, recording 2 songs each time with the pair of musicians. The recording sessions happened until the end of 1995. The music the trio made impressed producer Flood, who worked with the likes of U2, as well as the Smashing Pumpkins, as well as Madonna and Bjork producer Nelly Hooper, who also contributed to the group's debut album. They soon nabbed a deal with Virgin Records. The Sneaker Pimps recalled to the Tampa Tribune that their music follows a 3-pronged attack. Number 1, the songs have to have a unifying theme, specifically, and I quote, the psychology of people who stupidly buy into designer problems, the problem of being oppressed in the 90s. The second is that it has to have a root in some part of the past, with the trio suggesting that mental anguish of the 90s was really no different than any other decade. The elements of despair came from the male members' small town upbringing, and thirdly, the lyrics had to be written from a female perspective, with Howe adding, "It's too easy to write about boy things, to be a man's rock band." In 1996, Sneaker Pimps released their debut record, Becoming X. The album cover was very low-key. No band members were shown, but rather a computer-generated photo of electronic circuitry. One article stated the band was aggressively low-key as the Spice Girls were blatantly bold and bright, adding, "While the Spice Girls were put together by a producer who helped fashion 4 consecutive #1 singles and 1 thus far in the United States, Sneaker Pimp's exceptional debut, Becoming X, was recorded in the keyboardist's bedroom at his father's house, with Kelly Dayton singing in a closet." Dayton remarked in the same interview that she had intense mood swings being in that closet and was just happy to go home each night. The album's lead single, 6 Underground, became their breakout hit and the most successful song of their career. With its hypnotic beat, haunting melody, and ethereal vocals, Six Underground perfectly encapsulated the trip-hop sound that was dominating alternative radio at the time. Peaked at number 7 on the US alternative charts and number 45 on the Hot 100 chart, while it peaked at number 9 in the UK. Chris Corner said about the song, "It's about death in a small town environment. You grow up in this shit town and you yearn to get out. A lot of artists, we just can't survive in a place like that. So the essence of that song is that living in a small town is like dying." For us, it was a huge release to get out and explore the world, to see what everything else is about. In February of '97, the song also appeared in the Val Kilmer film The Saint. The band actually met Kilmer when he was filming near the band's rehearsal space, with Dayton telling the Star Tribune about the film, "I'm not sure if it's terrifically funny or dreadful." The band was adamant in interviews that, much to the chagrin of the record label, they didn't want to shove their personalities down people's throats. Instead, they wanted to make it on their sound alone. Dayton remarked in one interview, "It happens with female singers. Plaster me on the front with 2 boys in the background, and for me to be scantily clad and for the album to sell 20 times more copies than it did at first, people might have seen me like a cute thing like No Doubt." The album's notes didn't even really make mention of Dayton, instead only her bandmates are listed as songwriters. The artwork instead contains schematic drawings to actual devices, like one which removes DJs' voices from radio recordings. The group hated being labeled or pigeonholed in the press. They'd frequently be called electronica, trip-hop, and see endless comparisons to the American band Garbage. Howe told one interviewer that the first album was, and I quote, "filth-driven pop, taking aim at consumer culture and the media's obsession with dysfunction." Howe told the Tampa Tribune, "We approach issues in a sarcastic fashion, making puns and jokes of popular sentimental issues. Songs like Low Place Like Home tackles identity crises, while Tesco Suicide is about mass suicide kits sold in supermarkets."
Read your future in the magazine, tells you what to lose, just trust it. Go on, girls, the truth is
While Water Baby deals with obsession.
you wash my trace from your skin and you
Howe told Rolling Stone, "Everybody wants to have sex or save the world. We like to contrast these primal motivations against the dangers of the technological age, adding, it's biting, but it's whimsical, and it speaks about our biggest gripes with the Western world." Critics praised the album's blend of electronic beats, guitar-driven melodies, and distinctive vocals. But the group were quick to point out in interviews that their stage shows were not a matter of recreating the band's album, revealing that their shows were more spikier and more aggressive. When it came to the group's first tour of America, Sneaker Pimps treated it like a playground. In LA, Howe got into an argument with Dr. Drew on Loveline and stormed off the show. Meanwhile, in San Diego, Howe had to fish Corner from the ocean after he went skinny dipping and got swept out by the tide. Becoming X went gold in the UK and peaked at number 111 in the States. The group also had a few other successful singles, including Spin Spin Sugar and Postmodern Sleaze.
extreme. She's such a drama queen.
Then in 1997, the group collaborated with Marilyn Manson on the song Long Hard Road Out of Hell for the Spawn movie soundtrack, a collaboration that left some hard feelings between both parties. Kelly complained that the Sneaker Pimps had minimal involvement in the song, calling it crap, while Manson claimed the Sneaker Pimps were involved as a bit of a favor since they were begging to work with him.
Thinking that
We were all really excited about that.
yeah, thinking that we had a chance to make it, chance to polish a turd.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we knew that they weren't very good, and we thought, when we were first approached with it, God, that candle's flaming. We thought, well, we don't like the music, but if we can do something good with them, because, I mean, Liam and Chris are already, very good producers.
It's about
We
proving
thought
the
it'd be
point.
good,
Yeah.
but we
Well,
weren't there at the final mix, which was a mistake, big time.
What a gig to do in England,
So we had to come back, and I mean, they just, it was crap anyway, the song was crap.
I wouldn't waste my time having hard feelings, I've already forgotten their names, so. When we were approached to work with them, it was a bit of a favor in a sense because we had already written a song and I was interested in finding a girl to sing backup vocals on it. And Sneaker Pimps were someone who were begging and asking to be involved with us. And, I wasn't that familiar with them other than I thought they had a good single and I thought the girl's voice was great. When we worked on the song, I think they felt a little upset because there wasn't much for them to do because the song was already done. But you know, their participation and now their opinion is quite irrelevant to me. They did a mix of the song, so they obviously did receive the tapes because I have the mix of their song. And they were begging and asking for us to use it. And I said, okay, that's fine, we can put it as a remix. And now they've come back and said that they don't want us to use it, so.
But despite the group's success, tensions were brewing within the band. The grueling tour schedule was taking its toll, particularly on Howe, who left the tour early during a stopover in Tennessee. Meanwhile, Coroner was becoming increasingly frustrated with his role in the band. As Sneaker Pimps began work on what was going to be their second album, a significant change was on the horizon. While Kelly was away traveling after the Becoming X tour, Coroner took over vocal duties on the new demos. When she returned, she was informed that her voice was no longer considered suitable for the band's new direction. In the press at the time, the band members chalked it up to creative differences, with Howe admitting that him and Chris had always written the band's music. However, this decision was met with confusion and disappointment from many fans who had come up to associate Kelly's voice with the Sneaker Pimp sound. The band also expressed concerns about being stereotyped as a faddish female-fronted trip-hop act, which factored into their decision to change vocalists. This shift also marked a significant turning point in the band's history and would have far-reaching consequences for their future success. Sneaker Pimps released their second album, Splinter, in 1999. The album showcased a darker, more introspective sound compared to their debut. And while some fans embraced the new direction, others found it difficult to adjust to the absence of Kelly's distinctive voice. The lead single, Lo-Fi, failed to match the commercial success of Six Underground, and despite the quality of the songwriting and production, Sneaker Pimps struggled to maintain the level of popularity they'd achieved with their debut.
It takes too much to please me.
As the new millennium dawned, Sneaker Pimps found themselves at a crossroads. The trip-hop genre that had propelled them to fame was waning in popularity, and the band was still grappling with the aftermath of their lineup change. In 2002, the band released their third album, Bloodsport. This album saw them further exploring darker themes and more experimental sounds. While it garnered some critical praise from some quarters, it failed to reignite the band's commercial success. Following the release of Bloodsport, Sneaker Pimps entered a period of indefinite hiatus. Coroner focused on his solo project IMX, while Howe turned his attention to production work, collaborating with various artists in the pop and electronic music scenes. For many fans, this hiatus seemed like the end of Sneaker Pimps. The band that had burst onto the scene with such promise appeared to have faded into obscurity, leaving behind a legacy of innovative music and many wondering what could have been. Just when it seemed that Sneaker Pimps was destined to remain a footnote in the 90s music history, something unexpected happened. 2016, nearly 2 decades after their last record, Howe and Coroner announced that they were reviving the band. The news was met with a mix of excitement as well as skepticism from fans. Many wondered if Sneaker Pimps could recapture the magic of their early days, especially given the significant changes in the music industry since their heyday. In 2021, Sneaker Pimps released their latest record, Squaring the Circle. The album featured Coroner on lead vocals with contributions from various guest artists. Squaring the Circle showcased a more mature and evolved sound for the group, and while it retained elements of their early electronic style, it also incorporated some new influences and production techniques. As for their former vocalist Kelly, she's been working as a solo artist and has collaborated with the likes of Linkin Park and Bootsy Collins, to name a few, throughout her career. More recently, she revealed that she collaborated extensively with her old Sneaker Pimps bandmate Liam Howe on the mix and production for the soundtrack of her movie Ghost Driver. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.